All right, Goodreads horror nominees are finally up. I didn't do as bad as I expected. I have not read as many horror books this year, or really books in general, as I normally do. But I think I still got like 5 out of the nominees, and I believe most of them are going to hit the top 10, so I might not have to read that many. In order of popularity, books read, because popularity contests, obviously. Surprisingly beating out Stephen King, we have We Used to Live Here. I read this one. Talk about it later, but I wasn't a fan. Essentially, a couple has purchased a home, they're moving in, some people show up, and this is an explanation on why you shouldn't invite strangers into your home. Especially when you're home alone, because her wife was away at the time. Very much mind warpy, things aren't as they seem, reality isn't as it appears kind of vibe. A little bit confusing, but not a bad book, not for me. Then you have Stephen King. I'm really surprised this wasn't the most popular, but maybe because it was a short story collection. You Like It Darker. Now, I hate short story collections. I like novellas when it comes to horror, but short stories always feel lacking to me. This might be my favorite short story collection. I'll go into it later, but collection of short stories, no real overall theme or anything like it, nothing tying them together. Even the short stories that I didn't like had this eerie vibe to them that made it worth reading. Like, I don't regret reading, probably maybe one of them. I just like, there's no value in this, I hate this, personal preference. But the rest of them all had something that I admired and appreciated about the writing. Incidents around the house, jump scares galore. This is action-packed beyond all measures. I forgot I'm not doing reviews yet. A little girl has a imaginary friend in her closet that calls her the other mother or mommy or something like that, the other mommy. And she wants her to let her into her heart, and we don't know what that means. And the parents find out some stuff is going on in the house. And then it's just action-packed, fleeing everything. I have complaints. I did not enjoy this book a lot, but it's worth a read if you want a fast-paced, thrilling horror kind of vibe. Murder Road by Simone St. James. I like their writing. I've never loved any of their stories, but their stories have come close to me feeling actual fear. There's always like one little moment I'm like, well, that was terrifying. That writing, that struck some kind of nerve. But I did not even know that they came out with a new book. A young couple finds themselves haunted by a string of gruesome murders committed along an old deserted road in this terrifying new novel. All right, apparently a couple is driving on their honeymoon, pick up a hitchhiker. They think everything's fine. Turns out the hitchhiker is bleeding in the back seat. Hitchhiker dies, and they are now the #1 suspects for the murder. And a supernatural element that threatens both them and the town. Interesting. I've been meaning to read this book, and I keep forgetting that I need to. T. Kingfisher, fantastic writer. Oh, it's a follow-up to What Moves the Dead. That's good. I've read that one. All right, so after their events at the Usher Mansion, so retelling-ish of House of Usher, they go to a hunting lodge deep in the cold, dark forest. Oh, great, they find the caretaker dead, lodge in disarray. The villagers whisper that a breath-stealing monster from folklore has taken up residence in the Estersons' home. They don't take much stock into what the villagers are saying, but they can tell something is not quite right in their home or in their dreams. That sounds terrifying. Love that. So very excited to read that one. We'll definitely be reading it. Never heard of this, but I've definitely seen the cover. All right, that synopsis does not tell me much about what this is about. Girl feels different from her family. Did it say twin brother? Yep, twin brother. Weird things going on in the house from the vibes I'm getting. Sleep Tight. Never seen this cover before in my life. How does it have 13,000 ratings? Oh, Soul Survivor is serial killer. All right, sole survivor of a serial killer might hold the key to stopping a new spree of murders in this impulsive thriller in the vein of The Black Phone and The Whisper Man. Okay, I'm intrigued. I did like The Black Phone more or less, interesting concept, and The Whisper Man. I didn't like The Whisper Man as much as I liked that Shadow one, but still. Okay, so nearly 2 decades later, Father Silence, the serial killer at the start of the book, is finally put to death. But by the next morning, the detective who made the original arrest is found dead. Okay. New serial killer is taking credit for the murder and calling himself the outcast. Okay, that's probably giving me too much information in the synopsis. All right, piqued my interest. I don't have high hopes. Something about the vibes are not really clicking for me, but it's only a synopsis. What can you do? The eyes are the best part. One, awesome cover. I have read this. It's not what I expected. There is body horror in it. It is about a young girl, and it is her life growing up from childhood's teenage years into adulthood. She's in college. It's a hard time for her. She's stressed, and it's the mental unraveling as she's trying to survive many family issues. Her mother has a new boyfriend. There's lots of representations of different cultures and culture appropriation and resentment, but love and family at the heart of it. It's a very, very narrative, character-driven story, pretty slow paced, and I wish we had more on the eyes. She has this obsession with eyes, probably starting back when she was given like fish eyes to eat as a child. I guess you could say the importance that meant to her mother or grandmother as well. But no, it's a really good book. It really is. I don't know what didn't click for me because I didn't enjoy the process of reading it in the moment in terms of entertainment, but the story was really good. I might have to change my rating for that one. So Thirsty. I do not like that cover. A woman must learn to take life by the throat after a night out, leading to an irrevocable change in this juicy, thrilling novel, yada yada. So I'm going with she got turned into a vampire. Sloane Parker is dreading her birthday. She doesn't need a reminder of getting older or that she's feeling indifferent about her own life. Husband surprises her with a birthday weekend getaway. Does he sacrifice her to the devil and she ends up becoming a demon? Okay, so weekend, that's, I'm just speculating here. Not with him, but with Sloane's longtime best friend, troublemaker extraordinaire Naomi. Sloane anticipates a weekend of wine tasting and cozy robes to avoid issues she'd rather not confront, like her husband's repeated infidelity. That's fun. You should have divorced him. But when they arrive at their rental cottage, it becomes clear Naomi has something else in mind. She wants Sloane to stop letting things happen to her. For Sloane to really live, is Naomi a vampire? So Naomi orchestrates a wild night out with a group of mysterious strangers. Are they cultists? Only for her to take a horrifying turn that changes Sloane and Naomi's life forever. Do they both get turned into demons? The friends are forced to come to terms with some pretty eternal consequences on the body, vampires. I'm going with the group of strangers turn them into vampires. Considering vampire is in the genre tag, I'm going with I'm right. I don't like the cover, but I'm mildly intrigued. I was a teenage slasher. Stephen Graham Jones, I do like their writing. I do like their stories, but the focus of this one was off. So it is about a teenager who is turned into a slasher horror villain type thing. Like they lose control of their body and they have to follow the standard tropes of horror movies. And I appreciated that. It's just the lack of agency didn't work for me in the sense of they didn't want to be a slasher. It was like a curse upon them, but it's kind of cool. Like if no one's watching, they can appear places. They can move super fast. This way that a slasher is like kind of limping behind you, the killer at one moment, and then the character turns around and suddenly they're in front of them or right behind them. So becoming a slasher is basically a type of like superpower curse, and very similar to I was a teenage werewolf kind of thing, kind of vibe, inspiration. I like the concept of it. Like I said, focus just wasn't for me in terms of agency. Characters weren't driving the narrative. They were trying to fight the curse. A Sunny Place for Shady People. I like the title of that one. It is on my to-be-read anyway, so I do want to read this. But I don't know what it's about. I just seen the title and added it to my want-to-read list. Oh, and that's why I didn't read it. It's a collection of short stories. I don't like short stories. Alright, so a collection of short stories about human characters whose lives intertwine with ghosts, goblins, and the macabre. Interesting. A neighborhood haunted by ghosts, a family whose face melts away, a faded hotel haunted by a girl who dissolved in the water tank and the roof. Now I got true crime flashbacks, a riverbank populated by birds that used to be women, and more. Okay, I don't like short stories. I also don't like short stories, and I like the Stephen King one, so maybe. Bury Your Gaze is one that is on my want-to-read list that I need to read. I want to read their other book first, though. What was it called? Camp Damascus. I had wanted to read that first, but clearly I'm not going to have time. My understanding of this one is author, maybe TV producer, someone is telling a story with TV show, episodes, or whatever. They have two characters he wants together, but only if they'll kill one of the producer people said only if you kill one of them off, just because they don't want they want to use the bury your gaze trope. And someone is following him in his real life and enacting out the deaths on the show, something like that. I should read the synopsis. Yeah, it says a scriptwriter, but when he's pressured by his producer to kill off a gay character in the upcoming season finale for the algorithm, Misha discovers it's not that simple. So I don't think I'm wrong about that synopsis. The Book of Witching. Never heard of it. Don't know how I feel about that cover. A mother must fight for her daughter's life in this fierce and haunting tale of witchcraft and revenge. I like revenge. I haven't found a witchcraft book that I really like, but I like the idea of witchcraft. Oh no! A mother gets her worst nightmare, a call that her daughter is unconscious in the hospital after a hiking trip with friends. And when she wakes up, she doesn't recognize her mother. Oh, and she insists on being called by a different name. And connects back to a woman accused of witchcraft and murdered 4 centuries ago. All right, I take it back because I'm very much intrigued. My Darling Dreadful Things. I feel like I've seen this cover for a zillion years. How this came out this year? In a world where the dead can wake and walk among us, what is truly real? Okay, something about seances. All right, someone does something and the doctor has to consult whether she's mentally fit to stand trial. She'll have to prove her innocence and her sanity or lose everything. And something about an inheritance. Okay. The Angel of Indian Lake, I will not be reading. It's the 3rd book in a trilogy. I started the first one. It's very much pop culture references to the extreme. It's a love letter to horror movies, which I appreciate, love, and adore. It's just, I don't like it when the reference is explained to the reader. Like they're making a reference and then it's just like, oh, this is from this series kind of thing. I don't know. Too much talking to the reader a little bit. So sadly, I'm not reading that one. Almost done. Indian Burial Grounds. Naomi is the only one who suspects that something might be amiss amongst lurking within the tribal lands. Someone returns to the reservation with a past full of secrets, horror, and what might be the key to determining the boyfriend's cause of death. Together they set out to find answers. All right, the Bog Wife. All right, family tends to a cranberry bog, which is terrible. They flood that and the spiders come out. Would not want to tend to that bog. In exchange, the bog sustains them. Ooh. Seasons of their lives are governed by a strict covenant that is renewed with each generation with the ritual sacrifice of their patrons, and in return, the bog produces a bog wife. All right, I'm going with family focused in this, and I'm intrigued. House of Bone and Rain. I've been meaning to read something by this author. What was it that I bought but did not read yet? The Devil Takes You Home. I really meant to read that, and I just never had time. All right, what are you about? Okay, someone's mother has been shot. We're going to kill the guys who killed her. His son swears, and they all agree. Feral with grief. The son has become unrecognizable. Take no prisoners in a search for names. Soon they learn that the mother was gunned down by guys working for the drug kingpin of Puerto Rico. Okay, they strategize. That does not stop them. Blurring the boundaries between myth, mythicism, and grim realities of our world, House of Bone and Rain is a harrowing coming-of-age story, a doomed tale of devotion, the afterlife of violence, and what rolls in on the tides. I am intrigued. I wish this had more ratings because I don't think it'll make the top 10 with this few many people have read it. Yeah, only 1,500 ratings, but I do want to read that. Blood Like Mine? Not interested, really. There's an FBI agent with an investigation, but nothing piquing my interest there. This Cursed House. Southern Gothic horror debut. Alright, someone's trying to escape their life in Chicago, moves to New Orleans, awesome setting. People she's with looks down upon her. Shocking truth. Oh, the Dutchans are under a curse, and they think Gemma has the power to break it. I like curses. All right. Uncovering secrets that stretch back over centuries, secrets that bind her to their fate if she falls. I'm intrigued. I like that idea. All right, we'll see how many of these I can read before the top 10 are announced. All right, first check-in for Murder Road. Overall, fine start. It's an interesting take on not the woman in white, but ghost on a deserted highway, murdered women on a highway kind of thing. So they're, yeah, the idiots, 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 idiots. I don't care how poor you are. Well, it does suck that you'd have to do public defender or something like that. But if you're being questioned by the police, your car's full of blood, and your hands are quite literally with the blood of a murdered woman on it, the first and only words out of your mouth should be lawyer. But I'll look past that. They've said like 3 times we can't afford anything. We're innocent, so that's not... Innocent people need lawyers too. So do not like the fact that they're not asking for a lawyer, but whatever. Plot needs to happen. So suspend my disbelief there. And now they're kind of stuck in this town because they're trying to leave. First of all, the cops should not have said that they can't leave. You're not allowed to leave whatsoever, because, like, can they even do that if they're not under arrest, they're only suspects? Can you detain them? Tell them you can't leave town? I feel like that's not a thing. I don't know the law. I'm not a lawyer. Besides the point, they did try to leave, and then Ghost is just, like, attacking their car. I'm like, okay, so we are full supernatural here. My current theory is going to be that the Ghost is the main character's mother, who left her when she was just turned 18. I'm not paying attention to the timeline. I don't know how old this ghost is supposed to be. It's probably not going to work, and that's likely not what's happening. But I'm going with it's the ghost of her mother, because I feel that be poetic. Yeah, that's all I got so far. Literally 2 seconds after I turn the camera off, the audiobook is just like, such and such said the original main first woman was murdered in the 70s. And I'm like, yep, definitely not her mother who left her when she was 18. What can you do? All right, this is technically past what's like the introduction first third of the story, so I normally don't want to mention it. So slight spoiler warning, but I have a big criticism right now. The plot was going into a, hey, let's investigate these past murders kind of vibe, which is fine. But then a character comes up to them in the middle of a diner, said, hey, you two are the ones they thought were the murderer. I want to know everything you have, because I'm obsessed with this case. I have all the information on every single victim, every other missing girl, murdered woman or hitchhiker that occurred from like 1976, I think they said it was. Yeah, and I will give you all this information. I also have like police records that you can look through. Little forced. All right, so I finished Murder Road. I don't know if it's my favorite by this author. The other ones, I basically didn't enjoy their previous stories, but there was always one moment, like I said, of fear. Like, it was like, oh, that is actually scary, and I don't normally feel that in a book. It's only ever one scene, but it's there. This one, I enjoyed all the way through. It's a solid ghost story. The characters, their relationship was fine. Everything about it was fine. Pretty average 3 stars, but it didn't have that moment of fear. So other books, I'm like, 2 stars. There's a lot I don't like. The pacing, the characters, repetitiveness, slow. I'm not a fan. But like I said, there's that moment that's so well executed for horror. And this one lacks that, but it was fine the entire way through. I don't know how I feel. Not my favorite regardless, but then I accidentally today just like finished another book. So What Moves the Dead sequel, What Feeds the Dead, I think it's called. I binged this in like one sitting. I know it's not that long of a book, but still, I couldn't stop to check in because I just couldn't stop. Most people are going to love What Moves the Dead more. The first book, this book was tailor-made for me in terms of I love old wives' tales, specifically like the one who sits on your chest and steals your breath while you sleep. They were talking about using goose grease. I've never heard of anybody using that as a home remedy. Like, that is a staple back home. If somebody is sick, go down to the road, knock on your neighbor's door, see if they got any goose grease. It's hard to get goose grease now, but I need to get some because it's wonderful. It's a cure-all. So yes, if there's an evil spirit stealing your breath, I believe goose grease is going to help you. If you broke some ribs, I don't see why it can't hurt. I loved it. The characters, it took me a little while to get into the humor of it because the humor is a little jarring. It's a little bit, I don't know, naive? I don't know. But once you get into the humor of these characters and their personalities, it's a standout. Whoever with the mustache is like the mustache is so expressive. Agnes. I had to look up his name, but I knew that. I knew it was him. I know him. Is like I did something stupid and Agnes's mustache judged me for it. I love it. I love it. Most people are not going to love this book as much as I did. It tailor-made for me. I love the war flashbacks. I love the PTSD kind of vibes. Not overly in your face. I love the focus on dreams. Like this, every little thing about this book are like things that I latch onto in other books. Like there's a hinting mention of it. I love it. So to have an entire book on old wives' tales, on spirits, on ghost, on the type of humor, the dreams. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so apparently I've spent too much time on TikTok because I deleted it from my phone recently. No real reason, just spending a lot of time on it. And I've read 2 more books, and it hasn't been a day. I don't know, between breaks at work, slow moments at work, pedaling around the house, grocery shopping, anytime I go for my phone, when I pick it up to go on TikTok and it's not there, I just go on Audible or I go on Scrib and I start listening to an audiobook instead. And I've read 2 and I haven't even checked in. So I picked up Bury Your Gaze next. I adored this book. Not only 5 stars, new favorite, because not all favorite of all time. It's probably low in my favorites list, but I love this book. Simple premise. A scriptwriter in Hollywood was told to kill off 2 of his characters. They were supposed to come out as a lesbian couple, and then if you want to keep them as in a relationship, they had to be killed off, dramatic tragedy kind of thing, and of course brings up the bury your gaze trope. Or they could make them straight and keep them alive. And he's like, I've been building for this for however many seasons. Like, this is the moment that we've been waiting for. And I love not only the conversation around that trope. Obviously, I love tropes. So a book named after one was made for me. How it took me this long to read it, I do not know. But also going into like his love of horror in general, what it says about society, what it says about our own fears, what commentaries it's saying, whether it's about racism, whether it's existential dread, whether it's the fear of technology, the focus on AI, bringing dead actors back to life to appear in new movies, copyright holders, it brings up the strike that happened, and it goes in a way I did not expect. I loved. So he has been writing in for films for a long time now, and he's created different horror villains and monsters and the inspiration behind them, what led to their creation in real life in terms of, what inspired him to write them in this way and what influences he had growing up. And it goes into so much of the heart of this story. Like, it's a lot on trauma, but there's also joy and humor and love and friendship and the importance of all of these stories. LGBTQIA, whatever, trauma, tragedies, that has its own place in the world and stories. But there's also the idea of joy in those stories that should be represented. And I adore it. I adore it. I want to say I loved these characters, but that would be a lie. I love this character. So Misha, the main character of this book, and I don't know what he is described as in the book. I'm just picturing Misha from Supernatural. I'm sorry, I just am. But however he looks in this book, he is the only character that is actually well written from my perspective, really, because everyone else felt like a character trope or just kind of hollow, just there to serve Misha's story. And that's fine, because despite that, there's Tara, who now I'm thinking maybe an inspiration from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Who knows? I love them so very much. Like, asexual representation. Love it. She's a delight. I don't care if she's just quirky, all knowledgeable, and doesn't feel like it has as much depth as a character should for me to love a character. But by God, no, I'm happy. I love this story. Again, went away, was not expecting. I want to tell you more, but God, read this book. I love it. What else did I read? It pales in comparison to Bury Your Gaze. Oh God almighty, does it pale in comparison to Diavola? It was a very slow day at work, okay? I had a lot of downtime to kill. It's the only reason this got finished. And by the end of it, when I hit about 60%, I put the audiobook on 2.5 times speed, and in the last 20%, it was on 3 times speed. I was just getting through it. I wanted to DNF this. With like 20% left, I'm like, I hate this. I hate every second of this. And if I put this book down, I'm never picking it up again. I'm getting trash. I'm deleting it. Oh my God, I hated this book. The opening section, not terrible. A family is in Italy and their family vacation, whatever. Main character, whose name I do not care about. Was it Eva? It might have been Eva. Not even close. Anna. Got the A. Oh my God. So she is in Italy with her family. She went there 2 days before and didn't tell anybody because she wants some time alone. Rightfully so, because her family is terrible. Gaslighting her, being disappointed in her, making fun of her, nagging at her, blaming her for everything. So like black sheep in the family all the way. I expected it to be a little bit more outright because that's in the synopsis about how her family doesn't treat her well. The only reason I picked this up is because of the number of people who've read it. It's going to make the top 10. I don't understand. But it was a little bit more subtle than that. Like, they also have moments where they praise her for her education, but then it always circles back around of how it's a disappointment that she didn't make anything of herself to their standards. They hold her to a high standard, and she can never meet that. And when she acts like a regular person, like going out and having fun in her 20s, that's immediately her doing something selfish and tragic. Like, they are, I guess disappointed and cruel is the best way to describe, not cruel, harsh, on her, but not outright cruel and hateful. It's not like they hate her because they're family and they love her. She just doesn't fit in. And that is an interesting take. But then they're also using her because she's the only one who speaks Italian. And I swear to God, this book was sponsored by Duolingo for the amount of times how she has learned several languages through Duolingo. And oh my God almighty, I don't understand. But yeah. They're in Italy, she's translating for her family, they're using her for her knowledge of that, and that is the book for the first, 60-ish%. Sure, they're in a haunted villa, and you hear some things of, cat scratching, cold spots, someone had some bad dreams, but it's very vague, and it only happens when they're in the house, which is a very minimal amount of the time. The rest of the time, they're in restaurants, they're driving around, she's putting up with her brother's idiotic boyfriend. And then something interesting happens because they're like, all right, well, yesterday was Thursday, we did this. Friday was our day off according to our itinerary to relax around the house, and then we do all this stuff on Saturday. What are you talking about? Today's Saturday. They lost a full day. And something very interesting happened during that day. And it's a side point. It's an afterthought, not even mentioned till much, much later. I hate it, because that's the one interesting part of the novel happened in this day that is skipped over, and it pissed me off. Now, this is a little too close to spoilers because it talks about the last little bit of the book, so skip ahead to the next part of the video if you want to. I'm not going to give outright spoilers. I won't tell you exactly what happened, but eventually everyone just abandons her. So, which makes sense for their character. They're all selfish and looking out for themselves, and she's an afterthought. She's always the problem. She's always the blame, so separate yourself from her. And she ends up bringing the curse home with her to New York, and the rest of the book is essentially her embarrassing herself, her hygiene going downhill, and ridiculous ways that she's able to get rid of the curse through the help of Duolingo and witchcraft that she learned on the internet. I hate it. It went from an average, 3-star book to a 1-star. Like, I said 3 when we were in Italy, then I was like, okay, it's a 2, I'm annoyed, and by the end, a hate read. I hated everything. All right, so that's all I got so far. I'm going to pick up that witch book next. The Book of Witching. So, girl is severely burned. Her mother doesn't understand what happened to her. Because the idea of a mother fussing over what happened to their child, that's terrifying. So I want to read that. I do want a book about witches, but I looked up some of the synopsises online, some further research. There's a dual timeline element to it, like present day and 1500s. And while I like the idea of witches, I don't like historical fiction very much. I'd rather read a contemporary book that was written in that era and time frame. But we'll see how it goes. Now that's, I think, the last one I have access to of these 20 books, however many it is. So I guess I gotta wait until the top 10 is released, because the rest I have to buy. And I'd really, really rather not buy more. That being said, sunny place for shady people. I kind of want to own it, so we shall see. All right, check in for a Book of Witching, and this is the slowest that I've read a book since canceling TikTok or deleting TikTok from my phone. I'm so weird because half of the book I absolutely adore. The present day timeline with the daughter in a burns unit in the hospital and the grieving mother and absentee father not knowing if she's going to live or die, plus the other parents of the one who was burned to death and the one who's still missing, and no one having any idea how this happened, what they were doing. Yeah, love it. Drama. Bordering on police investigation as they think maybe the daughter had something to do with it. Love it, love it. Then she wakes up and she's calling herself Nyx, and I'm just like, oh, maybe, I guess. But then the past in the 1500s storyline about a girl accused of witchcraft. She is a witch, but she didn't do anything bad. I don't like false accusations, and I knew this was going to happen because it happens in basically any Puritan, medieval, witch, pilgrim kind of vibe, and I'm just not a fan of false accusations. I mean, technically it's not a false accusation. She is a witch, but she didn't kill anybody or try to kill anybody, so I don't like that. She used her magic and practices for good. So I'm enjoying one chapter, and then the very next chapter is the other timeline, and I just turn it off, and it takes me forever to come back to it. Then I finish that chapter, and then I speed through the next one because it's the present day, and then the next chapter is the past storyline, and I'm like, oh my god, kill me now. Turn off the app, do something else, come back, finally finish that chapter, speed through the next one, repeat. I don't know how I feel, because again, I'm loving one timeline, hating the other. I do not think that... Alright, I will finish the Witching book soon-ish, but it's not making my top 10, so I'm going to vote now for what I think is going to win. Well, what I think was the best one of these options, and that is going to be Bury Your Gaze. I love that book. What Feeds the Dead is obviously What Feeds the Dead is obviously very close. What Feast at Night is a very close second, but not quite. The other ones... We Used to Live Here or the Stephen King one is probably going to win first place, but I'm interested in the other books in the other categories. I'm willing to bet I haven't read any of them. Fiction... Not a one. I have been reading too much manga. I gotta read Leanne Moriarty. I've liked some of their books, but nothing in fiction. I have not read much outside of manga recently. The Frozen River has a beautiful cover. So does By Any Other Name. I'm a sucker for flowers over faces. Mystery thrillers, I might have read one of. Homes Where the Bodies Are one I do want to read. Middle of the Night, I've read that. The Last One at the Wedding, I really like the cover of, but I feel like that was from an author I despised. We Solve Murders, definitely one that I want to read. The God of the Woods I own, but have not read yet. The Mystery Guest, I have read the first book of that series, but that's a sequel, which I haven't read yet, so I guess I am voting for Middle of the Night, as it is the only one I've read. Romances, guaranteed I haven't read any of these, but the Sim and Bun bookstore sounds adorable. I like the color in A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. How to End a Love Story sounds cool, and the cover is cute. Romantasy. Ooh, When the Moon Hatches has a very pretty cover. I don't know any of these. Apprentice to the Villain, I own it. I will read it eventually. Maybe I'll do a book on Romantasy. That could be fun. Finally read Fourth Wing, which I know nothing about. Fantasy. Again, I've really just read either manga or horror. I haven't read anything else. Ooh, that's a pretty cover. The night ends with fire. My bad. Battery died. Alright, back to this. Alright. Oh, I did read Lee Bardugo's The Familiar. I did not like it, so even though I read it, I will not vote for that. Sci-fi. Science fiction. The Ascension looks pretty. Moon of the Turning Leaves looks pretty. The Blueprints looks very pretty. I want to read that. But, ooh, The Other Valley looks interesting. But no, I have not read many books this year. Oh, We Used to Live Here was debut. Did not know that. Eyes Were the Best Part was also debut. Ooh, I'm not pronouncing that. Intermezzo? Sally Rooney. I like that cover. I definitely haven't read any young adult fantasy. Young adult fiction. Oh, Heartstoppers! I haven't read volume 5. Wait for the Library was ridiculous. Dungeons and Drama sounds fun. I vote for Heartstoppers even though I haven't read that volume yet. I can't. Buy it so I can read it. Nonfiction. How to Tell When We Will Die on Pain, Disability, and Doom. I want to read that. Can I read that? I should read that. History and Biographies. Ooh, American Scary. A History of Horror from the Salem to the Stephen King and Beyond. I need to read that. I'm buying that. And that's the end. Okay, well, I'm clearly reading that book, but let me know if there's another one that I should read. Alright, I don't know what category this is in, but it's an adorable cover, so I got it. This book isn't bad. It is very dry, though, and it's covering so much so quickly. It's extensive, but I wanted a deeper look into why certain themes were discussed when they were brought about in different literature. Like, I just read The Long Walk not long ago by Stephen King, and the impact that the Vietnam War must have had in its conception, in its inspiration, in the events that are happening around it, cannot go unnoticed. I remember there was a video, College Humor, that did a real good look into like vampires and the political nature during that time, and the different fears that came about with society changing. And I think we are going to get into that. I'm only just started this book, so New Country, Old Bones. That's probably going to go more into, now that the history has passed, where are we looking now into the future? I'm sure it'll get into that. I'll come back to this one for sure. I will finish it. Alright, so finish the Book of Witching. I knew this wasn't going to be me as soon as I realized the trial of the witch was going to be like a main focus. I knew we were going to get witches, obviously. It's why I wanted to read this book. But it was a firm, like, half of the book. Every other chapter took place in the past timeline, and it's just a rehashing of Salem witch trials, essentially. And if you know anything about a witch trial back then, you know exactly how it's going to play out. All the evidence is frustratingly stupid. You can't disagree with the priests, because they are, I don't know, the voice of God or something. Like, they can't be wrong about you. You're accused of witch. So how you get evidence is you confess to being a witch. I'm honestly surprised for the ending, because normally when you confess, they're like, okay, we'll let you go now. But no, I hate it. I hated it because it was frustrating. I felt like the entire time, like, you can't have a fair trial in this timeline, in this situation. So did not like that. I did not like that we didn't focus on the group that she had left. It started with a T. I don't care about the name. Triskild? Something like that. Like, their origins of magic. What do they believe? How do their practice works? How, the Book of Witching, what, it seems to be evil, so are you just carrying it to keep the evil from spreading? What does it want? What does this group believe about the Book of Witching? Why is it important? Like, you could focus on aspects of them, but that was not the focus. It was just the trial. And I'm like, but I know how this trial is going to go. I know how it's going to frustrate me. There's nothing new here. And Like, someone does very, very, very bad things. We don't like them. And it's implied heavily that they're going to get their comeuppance. But I want to see what happens to them. I need vengeance brought upon them. Then you have, like, the whole thing in the present timeline. The girl's calling herself Nyx. And we get-ish an explanation on who Nyx is, but not enough. Not really. Not enough to justify it. To the point that I'm wondering if it's an evil spirit or if it's just somebody using a different name. Unclear. The connection between past and present, pointless-ish. Like, what does the people in the past care about what's happening in the present? In 2021, was it? I don't like it. There were a lot of plot points that seemed to go nowhere. I really wanted an investigation as well, just because I like the crime drama kind of stuff. But it was always more used as a threat. Hey, we believe your daughter started the fire, resulting in death, and we can hold her accountable for this. And it was a threat against the daughter, but nothing really came from the investigation. There was no investigation. Because the police were off doing their own thing off page. I did not like this book. Most of my dislike comes from me not liking false accusations, and therefore the non-drama of the Salem witch trial was just boring, and it was every other chapter, so it broke up the interesting part, threw off the pacing for me, because I was enjoying the present-day timeline. But overall, I don't know, 2 stars. More of a not for me than an actually bad book. I think other people will really enjoy this one. Apparently I don't like witch trials. Alright, I'll get back in a little bit and I'll rank the 10 that I have read, and then we're just waiting for the top 10 to be released, and I'll see if they're on there or if I gotta read some more, because I'm gonna have to buy the ones that I haven't read. My bank account's not gonna like this if it's more than like 1 or 2, but oh well. Okay, there are like 5 more days till the next round of Goodreads voting. It's very late. I have my 4th copy of Frankenstein. What am I going to do with these beautiful sprayed edges version of Frankenstein? I have no idea, but pretty. All right, so it's November 26th, finally. I have never been this far ahead with the Goodreads Choice Awards. Normally, I'm still reading the most popular ones by the time the top 10 is released. But let's log on and see what has changed. All right, What Feast at Night? Thank God. I love that book. Sleep Tight. I knew it was going to be there, but like I said, I didn't want to buy it if I didn't have to. So that's 1. I like the idea of it, but it's hit or miss with me with crime, FBI, police, whatever books. If you like it darker, no surprise, Stephen King's here. I was a teenage slasher. I'm really glad to see that there. I didn't personally like it, but it's a really unique, really good book. The eyes are the best part. Phenomenal. I hate Diavola, however you pronounce that one, but popular, so not surprised. Instantly Around the House, fast-paced, action-packed. Can't go wrong with that one. Bury Your Gazes there. That's going to be my vote. We Used to Live Here, very popular book. And Murder Road. A little bit surprised to see that one, honestly. What one did I read that's not here? The Witch book. I think I only read 10. I knew the Witch book wasn't going to make it. Didn't have quite enough votes, but I really wanted to like a Witch book, so I picked that one up anyway. And I like Taffa. Alright, so that just leaves me, thankfully, with only 1 book I have to buy. Sleep Tight. I kind of assumed there'd be probably 2 or 3 here that I would have to buy. And because there's only 1, I guess I was going to buy either the ebooks or a physical copy, depending on, I really wanted the Burial Grounds one or Sunny Place for Shady People, because I wanted those books, physically own them. I don't really want to own Sleep Tight, so maybe I'll get the audiobook just to get through it, because there's only 1 more to get through. I'm probably going to end up doing that, rather than the ebook. Alright, check in when I've started that one. Oh, we are off to a terrible start. First of all, this first part isn't a complaint. It is so fast-paced, action, get to the point, start the plot right away. Within 7 chapters, which are very short, took no time. We have introduced the characters, we have 2 people dead, and threatening phone call. The protagonist is in the most intense moment of her life. Something terrible has happened. It's in the synopsis. I feel it's too close to a spoiler. And something big happens that's not in the synopsis. At least I don't think it was. that I'm not going to say because giant reveal. Now my complaint starts with this girl's having memory issues, and her parents, her father at least, was involved with stopping the serial killer from years ago who just got executed. And she has holes in her memory, and then she's remembering something about a hammer, and they moved town for no reason whatsoever. The holes in the memory is the biggest thing, so clearly, if she did not have some kind of interaction with either past serial killer or a survivor of serial killer back in the hometown, and like people were giving them a hard time for something, I don't know what to tell you. That just doesn't make sense. And all of a sudden, so serial killer in present has killed 2 people, blackened out their eyes, and I think called her saying he's an outsider, it's not his fault, they can see the darkness now, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, she remembers that the survivor of the first serial killer, upon being rescued, killed his own father, cut out his eyes, and carved outsider on his chest. I'm like, you're just one, why are you just remembering that you overheard this conversation? 2, why was it not in police records somewhere that they could have brought that up and realized it right away? I'm just saying. All right. So I'm a terrible cat parent because I just got an email from the vet wishing Maven a happy birthday. I'm sorry, Maven. I forgot your birthday. So I went to the mall and grabbed a toy that I know he'll like because he loves this tent more than anything ever. I also picked him up a sweater. The instructions or the sizing on the back said a small was good for a cat. I got his head in here and one paw, and Sin nearly choked. Like, this is too small for him. So waste of money there. Got a little moose on it. I don't know, I might be able to rig something up. But no, let's just see if he likes this. This better not be too small for you. Oh my god, I hated this book. Chalk it up to, okay, it's not terrible. It's predictable. You can't predict all of it because some of it's nonsensical. It's a crime thriller that uses horror elements when it needs to get things going because the pacing started to slow, but it's fast-paced throughout the entire thing, more or less. I just don't care about any of it because there are so many characters with so much stuff going on and none of it's explored in any kind of detail. I have to go into spoilers. Starting with spoilers for like the first 7-ish chapters. So introduction, the majority of this is in the synopsis, save one detail. Girl protagonist Tess, I believe, both her parents have just been murdered. Her daughter has been kidnapped. Her husband is having an affair. And she's relapsing into an old drug addiction. Is any of this relevant? Sort of, but none of it is explored. Parents go on mourn because clearly she's got other things to deal with. Her daughter's been kidnapped by the same person who just killed her parents. So she needs to focus on that. Her marriage, him cheating on her, is only a plot point to bring up the fact that her daughter likes her father more than her, so she's the second favorite parent, the inadequacies, blaming the failing of the marriage on the fact that she's never home and spends too much time working. But it's not a concern, really. I don't want to spoil the ending, but I got no choice. Spoiler talk. He moves back in because it's basically a one-night stand, bad decision, and they're so happy to have their daughter back, they're not going to lose their family again. Fine, but like at least mention that you're going to marriage counseling. The only reason he had that affair was so she was the one dropping her off for school instead of him, because he would have dropped her off at the front doors. He does it every day. She was in a hurry to get to work, so she dropped him off with a crowd of students who were walking by, and that allowed serial killer to kidnap him. I already mentioned parents go on mourn. Fine. You know what? A lot of stuff was going on. You couldn't focus too much on grieving there. The amount of time that she did spend grieving made sense. But she also keeps having like gaps in her memory stemming from childhood through the trauma, which conveniently gets brought up as it's relevant to the plot. So when she remembers something that was happening in her childhood, like the fact that she is the one who got the serial killer, I guess, arrested to begin with, got the evidence, that she broke into his house, well, sort of broke in, he let her in, that she smuggled herself in the cop car and was there upon the arrest, that she forgot about and nobody knew. And she was in the woods to see the characters who become very important. I'll save that part of the spoilers for people who read this book. But like everything that she had forgotten comes back to her as soon as it's needed for the plot. You have an unnecessary, I guess it's not. You have a rape scene that is the motivation for a thing, which again, not going to mention. The big bad of the series is built up well, and then big spoiler, jump ahead. I'm just going to have to put timestamps for individual spoilers, but skip over this one if you plan to read this book. Yeah, she is taken out as soon as she is revealed, like, on page in present timeline. We see glimpses of her leading up throughout the book, but immediately as she is introduced to present timeline, hammer to the head, gone. I'm like, what was the point of building her up so much? Then you have the cult, who are God knows what, but they're willing to get shot by FBI agents and storming the burial grounds where the buddy was executed. And then, like, they have a lawyer, they have a cop, they got so many people working for them, or so many people in this cult. What is the cult doing? They're running around the woods wearing masks, believing the serial killer, who's best known for killing children, is their messiah. And they're going to try to bring him back to life. Don't know how, not explained, but they go get his body, and we're assuming he's going to be resurrected on the third day. That would be really weird and cool and interesting if the cult was anything other than a group of individuals that were running around in the woods. Then you got a random psychic who plays a role in other ways. Again, I'll save that one spoiler for you. But, like, she's just like, oh, yeah, your investigation's stalled? Hey, I'm psychic. Here's the information you need. If it had focused on the cult, focused on the horror elements, focused on the old house that the serial killer killed all the victims in, that'd be one thing. But it just also wants to be like a paint-by-numbers, police procedural, criminal thriller, whatever. And it can't really be both, because if we're not focusing on the horror elements, they feel like just something contrived to drive the plot along because the characters got stuck. That's not even mentioning the character with what's it called? Dissociative identity disorder, that, you know, okay, normally, you have multiple personalities within the one thing. Well, this guy is aware of all his personalities because spoilers, because he absorbed the personality / possibly spirits of the kids who were killed in the house, because he was also there. Took them way too long to realize the names of the other alternate personalities were the same names as the people who were killed in the house. How was that not very common sense to them? Because I called that in about 30 seconds. But not only did he absorb their personality, souls, whatever, he also took on the personality of the outsider, the one who killed the protagonist's parents and is doing all this stuff in the present timeline, except they're alive. So he's just randomly, unexplained, seeing through this other character's eyes, knowing what he's doing, knowing where he's going. A little bit foggy, but they're connected mentally. So random supernatural connection there. I don't know what this book wants to be, because it doesn't want to be just a simple criminal one. It doesn't want to be just a horror book. It felt like there was so much going on, and it was just felt so contrived to force the story forward, and I wish it dived into any themes or plot points brought up in any amount of depth. But that's neither here nor there. People like this book. I am not one of those people. It's also not terrible. It's frustrating because it was doing so much. It wasn't bad. Potential. It had more potential than other boring books. Other boring books that I've read, I'm like, I got nothing I liked about this. But this one had a lot of stuff that I liked, just executed poorly because there's so much going on. That's just me. Let's rank what I've read, because that's not the worst. is close to the worst one. Number 10, technically 11, I read a couple, is Diavola. Hate it, that one. Nothing happens. My God. And what did happen was off page. So, no. Go on an Italy vacation and don't go into haunted houses. I'm trying to decide for Book of Witching. I really didn't like the trial in Book of Witching, so that's going to be the next one. I didn't like the trial, but it wasn't for that. If I liked trials and witches and Salem witch trials, then yes, this would have been a fantastic book. But I knew how the trial was going to play out from the beginning, so nothing surprising, just irritation of the evidence presented for accusing someone of being a witch. Then I'm probably going with Sleep Tight, just because they did have a good example of Chekhov's gun, if probably my favorite example. I did really enjoy that. No, Bury Your Great Gaze also did it, and I love that more. It doesn't matter. Chekhov's gun. Excellent literary device and trope, so did enjoy that a bit of the book. There's a positive. After that is going to be the eyeball one, probably. Nope, we used to live here. Did not like that book either. This is going to be the winner, considering the amount of people who've read it. But going into this house, now, if it had focused or given more time with the relationship between the two homeowners, they were very cute. They're adorable together. I like them. I like the fact that the main protagonist uses her wife as an excuse to not to have to interact with people socially. And anytime she's in a situation she doesn't like, let me just check with my wife. Hey, do you want to do this? And wife's just like, yeah, we can totally do that. Okay, great. Yeah, she said no. So love that. But also, she just invites strangers into her home, makes terrible decisions. She's home alone. Don't invite strangers who claim they used to live in your house into your home. It's a bad idea. And then just things go wrong, can't trust your own memories, the house is changing, timelines maybe are changing, parallel universes. It was a little wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, and not in the fun way for me. But had potential to be really good. I think if the book started where it ended, if it started from the end and continued on from there, would have adored it. And I wish I could tell you why, but that's too big of a spoiler, and people are actually probably going to read this one because most people love it. So I like the ending, and I'm interested to see where the story continues from, but that's not going to happen. I gotta go with I Was a Teenage Slasher after that, honestly. Just because, again, lack of agency to the book, or to the characters, because they're forced to follow the standard tropes of a slasher movie, and I wanted their choices to be impactful, not the world changing who they were to enact certain scenarios. So that's a personal preference. Most people will love this one. I will recommend this one to a lot of people. It is good. It's just not my personal taste. Next, we're going to go with actually Murder Road. Strong, straightforward, ghost story, very good, ending, a little bit but I did like this one. Absolutely fine. Now we have the eyes are the best part. I love and hate it in equal amounts, but I mostly love it. I do. It's grown on me. A fantastic, absolutely delightful character study. The protagonist, the depth we go into her family, and their culture, everything that they value and what they are working for, the anxiety, the pressure put upon you by college/university, expertly handled. Delight. Should be just a classic literature kind of story, contemporary fiction, whatever. But then she becomes obsessed with eyeballs, and you may or may not be a serial killer. Unclear. Ending just felt very rushed, and I would have preferred more horror, gruesome, body horror elements, because that is very much lacking. But still, fantastic character work. I cannot believe I'm putting Stephen King's short story collection this high, though. You like it darker? Yeah, no, they had some really good short stories. The one near the end is probably my favorite, where a character is given however many seconds or minutes to ask some all-knowing being everything that they want. Yes or no questions only. He's not here to give advice, so it's just like, did this happen in the future? Sure, it did, yes. And then he uses that information, how it impacts his life, how it impacts his family, how it impacts his relationships. So good. Incidents around the house. I feel like I almost got this too high. It's a fast-paced, very fast-paced thriller. that happens to have a monster that you're running from. But also the look on themes of trauma within the family and how parents can be in conflict and how that can in fact impact the child. It starts subtle and it's so good till it builds and builds and builds, and I love that element for it. My only complaint is, like, at one point it would have been great if they really, like, started researching this demon monster thing that was after them, if we looked into what it means to want to let her into your heart. This child's imaginary friend is genuinely terrifying, but the entire book is basically run from them, run from them, run from them, continue to run from them, and then the ending happens, and I'm like, that's what we're taking from this terrible message. I just need a little bit more depth on what the monster was, even if what they researched was wrong. That's something, anything, and it turns out that we learned the wrong thing, or we focused on the wrong culture. Literally anything besides let's just run from it. I want a little bit of proactivity here. What Feast at Night? Clearly made for me. Fantastic. I've already gushed. The focus on dreams, on, I'll say, old wives' tales and remedies. I love it. The humor took a while to grow on me, but I still love it. And number 1, my personal favorite of this top 10, Bury Your Gaze. Finally, I'm happy I read it. 10 out of 10. Favorite of all time. It's phenomenal. Granted, it's low on my favorite of all time list, but it is there. And I love the character plus Tara. I love the characters. I love the humor. I love the attitude. I love the focus. I love the themes. I love the ending. I love the beginning. I love the middle. It was a delight the entire way through, and it got a pretty cover with pretty colors. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. All right, it is late at night. I finally learned how the camera works. You know, if you open the aperture, you get brighter lighting, and also helps if I turn on more lights in my apartment. So hopefully videos won't be as dark moving forward. Yeah, that's actually all I got. So I will talk to you later. This has been fun. I've read some good thrillers and horror books that sometimes felt like a thriller. And I've read some really bad ones, but I do like doing this every year. So talk to you later. Bye.